Hey Adam, thanks for coming on the show. Maybe we could start by having you introduce yourself then.
Um, Getting on for 7 or 8 years ago, I had a bit of I got into I had a difficult time with lack of work and got very stressed and anxious about it because I was freelancing then, very stressed and anxious and got insomnia and things. And I started, in order to sort myself out, I started exploring various techniques, therapeutic techniques, and I came across something called EFT, which is emotional freedom technique, which is a very useful therapeutic tool for clearing blocks and things like that. And that opened up to a whole new chapter in my life, which was, a therapeutic one. And I'm now a practicing therapist. But as I was doing this, there was a natural evolution in this from EFT to something called optimal EFT, which was the original guy who created EFT, called Gary Craig. The original EFT is this sort of tapping thing. So you're tapping these various acupuncture points to release sort of trapped trauma. Whereas optimal EFT is a no tapping version. And it's a much more spiritually based thing. And I was a bit ambivalent about the spirituality thing. I mean, I've read some books and quite liked it. But, it was one of these things that it was just of passing interest, shall we say. But then I was looking at this optimal EFT, and that was when I was toying with the idea of, did I want to, because it cost a reasonable amount of money to do the course, and I was toying with the idea, do I want to invest this money in doing this, or is because I couldn't seem, I downloaded the free ebook and I couldn't seem to get it to work, and so I was just messing around with this, and I didn't know what I was doing really, but I was just sort of playing around with the themes of love and healing and things like that in my head. And then I felt this growing feeling inside me. And then I just sort of sat with it. It took about 20 minutes or half an hour or something like that. And suddenly there was this overwhelming feeling of unconditional love that just swept over me. And it's one of these things that you remember your whole life. It's one of these moments that some people have, where I just knew that this was infinite unconditional love, and that with this could heal anything. I knew that this could, absolutely just knew this from the core of my being, this could heal anything. Now, like a fool, I didn't actually go and clear every single issue that I had at the time, but I was just reveling in this feeling. And for weeks afterwards, just even thinking about what had happened to me and talking about it would bring me to tears of joy, and then, gradually that's faded, so I can talk about it now, for example, without breaking down. But it was a beautiful experience, and that pushed me through the door about, I've clearly got to try optimal EFT. And excuse me. So it's basically a more spiritual healing type of approach compared to the tapping that EFT is. But the basic framework is the same, as that you look for specific events, which is something that happened to you in the past when you felt angry or anxious or whatever it was. But then rather than tapping on it, you bring in some kind of divine healing. And they deliberately don't use any words which sort of like God or the divine. Well, you can use whatever word you want, but they talk about the unseen therapist just as some generic term to try and be so there's as few associations as possible. So, but you can call it what you want. Anyway, so you're bringing in this unseen therapist, this divine healing, and you literally just let go and say, okay, heal this. And miraculous as it seems, it happens. And so what got me through the door of spirituality, and that then it's just been, it's like a calling for me, really. It has really, become one of the mainstays of my life. And so, yes, I am, I consider myself a very spiritual person now. And, I do my therapy work, but I also do what I call spiritual therapy, which is working with people who are on the spiritual path, who want to, unlock more, release their blocks and sort of open up spiritually more.
I think that's taking a step back a little bit. I think a lot of people might be hesitant to try this stuff out, but I think if you realize that it's not really about a religion, it's a basic, like, universal mechanism of how things work. And if you can just try it out and judge it on the results and not what you thought about it before or any preconceived notions, then I think you'll find that it can have a lot of huge benefits, and you just have to open your mind a little bit.
Absolutely. Yes, I mean, many people tend to confuse the words religion with spirituality, and to me, they're completely different things. It's maybe worth just spending a little time talking about the differences. So, for a religion, we all know what a religion is like and what the various different flavors are, but it's it's like a set of rules that you have about what to believe, and you sort of decide, okay, I'm going to be a Christian now or a Buddhist or whatever, so I believe these things and I go have these daily habits that I do, and I'll attend this worship in this way. Whereas spirituality is about it's experiential. It's about you experiencing things firsthand and knowing through your spiritual journey about the truth, rather than someone else telling you what the truth is. So it's very much a first-hand experience, and the ultimate message in spirituality is that basically we are all part of the universal oneness, and we're a soul on a many lifetimes journey through this oneness, and we're here to experience all the diversity and joy in life, and also to discover that there are certain hidden things going on in life, like the fact that our thoughts are creative, and we get all the stuff like the law of attraction and all that kind of thing, which underpins how the whole universe works. And that's what we're here for, this joyful experience of creativity. We talk about co-creating with source, and experiencing life in all its diversity. So it's not a set of rules to believe, and there's no trying to convince other people to do it either. I mean, I don't care whether you believe it or not. It's that's your journey. I'm on my journey, and I would say to anyone who's at all interested that your life will certainly be immeasurably enriched through this process in a way that is absolutely wonderful. And but you don't have to do it if you don't want to. You can believe what you want. You don't have to believe anything. That's the whole point. Is this rich tapestry of life. It's all the whole spiritual journey. It's about the universe experiencing everything for itself through us. Including believing, not believing, being good, being bad, war, joy, everything, the whole gamut, the whole lot. That's all there to be experienced, and it's just a wonderful creative process.
No, totally. And you have to realize, I mean, I respect any religion, obviously, but I think all these religions, you have to realize, are basically made by men, and they were formed for some sort of control in some way a lot of times. So I think the best thing to do is to just realize that they are all seeking the truth in their own way. And if you can respect that and take the little pieces of each religion that works, I think you'll have a much better understanding, because there's a lot of good historical stuff in things like the Bible and the Quran and stuff like that. So I think if we can really learn from that and not judge that prematurely either, then I think we start to open up to what's really going on in the universe, right?
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. I came across a very good quote in a fabulous book, which if anyone's at all interested in spirituality, I recommend they read, which is called Dying to Be Me by Anita Moorjani. So if anyone hasn't read that, then it's a brilliant introduction to spirituality. But anyway, the quote she says, it actually comes from her mother, who says, these religions, they are not the truth, but they are paths to follow in order to get to the truth. So, if you feel so inclined towards following a particular religion, that's fine. But remember, all that doctrine isn't the truth, but it might help you discover the truth for yourself as you go on that journey. And as you say, there's a lot of wonderful, profound wisdom in all these holy books and things. And it's, I think, as you say, part of the downside with many religions is that there's a lot of giving up of control, as in you have to worship this way, you know, follow these rules and we'll tell you what the right rules are to believe, you know, whereas true spirituality is about discovering for yourself what the rules are and actually partly making up the rules yourself and defining who you are through that process of what you believe, you know. And there's no rules. I mean, that is the ultimate truth, is there are no rules. You know, it's that's the creative process itself.
Yeah, totally agree. Now, one interesting topic that comes up around finance and spirituality is this idea that if you make a lot of money, you're not spiritual. So maybe you could talk about that a little bit, and how people's dharma or their, you know, their programming fits into that. Yeah,
I mean, the thing about, I mean, we've talked before about psychology of trading, and one of the really big blocks to many people's trading is the issue of how they feel about money. And how, you know, we talk about filthy money, filthy lucre, filthy rich, all this kind of thing. And there's this feeling it's bad and it's not spiritual. Part of the spiritual journey is about peeling back the layers and discovering all your limiting beliefs about everything. And, you know, including money. You know, money is just, and the best way I find of looking at it is just a frozen token of exchange. So, you know, I'm a therapist. People pay me for my therapeutic services. I offer them great benefit. And, you know, it's just an exchange, an energy flow. And for a good, any transaction between people, there should be a two-way flow in it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be money, but that flow, it's I can't really describe it, but it's almost on a spiritual level that there needs to be that two-way exchange. You know, and money is a convenient frozen token for that, you know. So it's some people talk about, rather than thinking about money and you know, if they're doing affirmations or something, they talk about flow or abundance or things like that, because it doesn't have to be money that you're getting. But this idea that money is somehow bad and that people, you know, if you have money, you're going to be bad, is a limiting belief. The truth is, money is just money, and you can be very, very, I was going to say filthy rich, but that's the whole point. You can be very, very rich and deeply spiritual. You can be very, very poor and deeply spiritual. And, you know, you can be very, very rich or very, very poor and have no spirituality at all. And I think the reason why many people make this association is because there's a lot of people who, you know, for whatever reason, for their childhood, how they're brought up, they are very driven. You know, there's something lacking in their life. There's a black hole in their life. They try and fill it through achieving something, you know, quite often money. And it's, you know, for many people, making money becomes their raison d'etre. That's what they're about. And, you know, and you can think of all sorts of examples of people who are just perpetually driven to make more and more money. And it's not like they're enjoying or spending them. I mean, they do spend their money, but, you know, and it's all about, some of it's about ostentatious wealth, and they're, you know, and they're all just trying somehow to prove to themselves that they have value and worth. You know, whereas what they really need to do is a bit of therapy and actually, you know, work out that they don't. And this is the fundamental spiritual truth. You don't have to do anything to be valued and loved and lovable. And that is, you know, the ultimate truth. Is there's nothing you need to achieve in order to be loved by the universe. And this is something that, you know, there's so many of these religions say, oh, you got to behave in this way. You've got to, you know, if you're really good, then you'll maybe go to heaven, or if you're bad, you go to hell. You know, if you earn money, then that's not God's way. Doesn't, you know, it's all nonsense. It's just, you know, there are no rules. So there's a brilliant quote in another set of books. If you really want to read a really good introduction to spirituality, is Conversations with God by Neale Donald Walsch. Neale spelled Neale. Fantastic. There's a trilogy of books. But I mean, I remember that when I started reading it, the first 12 pages, I just had to stop and think, bloody hell, there's so much truth in this. And I'll have to go back to the beginning again because it was just so profound. But there's a brilliant quote in there where he says, God said, because it's a channeled book. So God is talking through the author, Neale Donald Walsch, who's just writing it all down. And he says, the trouble with you, Neale, is you think that money is bad and God is good, which is mind-blowing because the truth is neither of those statements is true. God is not good. God is everything, good and bad, up and down, left and right. You know, it's the all. And, you know, people get lost on this idea that somehow spirituality, you know, you have to be good to be spiritual, and, you know, and that money is bad, and, you know, neither of which is true. You know, the truth is that most people on a spiritual path will naturally be good, because as you are growing in that way, you're start to realize that you and everyone else are one. Why would you cause harm to anyone else? I mean, because it's an extension of yourself. So naturally you'll, you know, and a natural spiritual evolution is also one of love and compassion and things like that. But it's not, you don't have to do it. In fact, if you feel you have to do it, you're missing the point, because then it's a limiting belief. It's an idea, oh, I've got to be good. Mm-hmm. You know, you're trying to let go of all those limiting beliefs, just allow the, you know, the truth to come out. So yes, so ideas about money are a huge block, which, you know, one of the other hats I wear is as a trading psychology coach, and I spend a lot of time working with clients on unpicking ideas about money being good or bad or things like that. You know, mm-hmm. it just is.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, and one conclusion I came to was, I think as you start to look at how the world works a little bit more, and all this stuff coming out in 2020 and all that, you realize that some of the deepest atrocities in human history have been associated with very wealthy people. And I think that's been kind of like subconsciously ingrained into everybody. So I think that's part of the issue right there. And if we can unwork that stuff out of our minds, then I think we'll be a lot better off.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it's about power, actually.
Yeah.
You know, people,
it's more power than money.
And it's one of these things. As I said, some people, they're trying to shore up their sense of insecurity either with money or with power or with both. Mm. And, you know, this is old saying about power corrupts and all that kind of things. And it does. And you, as you say, all sorts of terrible things are done by people in power. I mean, you know, look at Putin, for example, and what he's inflicting on, you know, on Ukraine at the moment, just because of some weird ideas he's got in his head. So many of these things, you know, like Hitler as well. And, you know, it's... yeah, there's a lot of, quotes, evil is done in the name of power and money. Mm-hmm. You know, I say evil in quotes because, you know, at the deepest level, there's not even any such thing as evil, you know, but it's, these labels are useful because it's parts of defining who we are as a society.
Yeah, so. Yeah, definitely. I think somebody called it the catalyst, right? It's not really evil. It's just a learning experience.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it, actually. It's yeah. Okay,
cool. So when after you discovered the EFT, you had your breakthrough, you said that was about 7 years ago, and then from there you kind of, how did you progress from there? You started doing therapy, or?
Yes. So I'll just give the timeline. So about 7 years ago I had the breakdown, as it were, and I was doing EFT, and then it was only about 3 years ago I started doing the OEFT. So it's been a comparatively short period of time that this you know, spiritual growth, or almost explosion in growth, you know, within myself, and my therapy has gone from being just sort of tapping stuff and dealing with, you know, mundane worldly things to much more spiritually based. So that's how it's evolved. And there's this interesting thing. I'm going to ramble at a tangent now, but it's an interesting thing about spirituality that it's intertwined with this sort of self-development journey. You know, and it seems to be the way that it is that, and the reason why is that fully to embrace your spirituality. I mean, ultimately, it's there within us all. You know, the truth. and the love and the light and things. It's there within us all, but we hide it under all our issues and burdens that we carry around with us. In order to uncover that truth which is within us, we need to remove these burdens. And so there naturally is a spiritual accompanying spirituality. There is this therapeutic process or self-development process, however you want to describe it, which sort of tends to go hand in hand. And when I discovered, firstly EFT and then particularly OEFT, and realized how rapidly you can clear some of these blocks, then you start off by just clearing stuff. And I was trying to desperately find out what it was that was blocking my sleep. And so I was clearing. And then you start to realize there's no limit to what I can clear here. What would happen if I were to clear everything? And that's, I can't pretend I've got there, but what would happen? What would you be like? Because as you do the stuff, you change as a person, right? You feel lighter, you're less encumbered by worry and anxiety. They talk about this enlightenment, which is, and it seems to be this abstract, airy-fairy state that you have to meditate on a mountain for many years to get. But it's an ongoing process of making yourself lighter as you let go of the burdens you are carrying. And so, it's not this binary state, either you're enlightened or you're not. It's a journey of enlightening as you let go of these burdens. And, it's just therapy plus a realization of these far greater truths that, lie within us. And so that's basically that's the journey I've been on. And as part of that, personally, I have found that I'll just backtrack a little bit. What I found is I not only, I was quite good at doing the therapy side of things, but when I started doing it, and I would say, I've got this feeling now. What is the underlying cause of this? And I would instantly be given it as a feeling of this is where it comes from. And so, that was really useful as for a therapeutic tool to be given the underlying event. Now, not everyone can do that or gets that, but I seem to have that intuitive ability. But then what I noticed is when I was working with someone else, if someone said, I've got this fear of clowns or whatever, and I'd ask, where's this come from? I'd be given the feeling for them instantly. And I'd know, I could feel their fear. And, it turns out I'm an empath, so I can tune into people and I can feel what's going on in them. What I then realized is because if I got a energy block on my own, I could clear it in various different ways. Like OEFT is one way of doing it, but I had various other ways where I'd basically just pull apart the energy block because I could feel it. I could just pull it apart and throw it away. I found that I could do that with other people as well, you see. And so, then it evolved into more of a, I'm a healer in some ways, in that I can do this. I can dissolve other people's energy blocks, and now optimal EFT is a process of doing that anyone can do, because you don't do it. You just call in this healing power and it does it. But, I can actually feel the energy field and to a certain extent pull apart someone else's energy block. So that's how things have evolved for me. But I firmly believe that for anyone, that as you start on this spiritual journey and you clear more and more of these blocks and traumas, whether they're big T or small t traumas, you will open up spiritually and you will open up intuitively, and that you will start to get insights of various kinds. And some people get insights where they're sort of visual, some are auditory, they hear things. Me, I feel things mostly. You'll start to get sort of premonitions or just intuitions.
So let's talk about the different types of intuition, like the different clairs. I mean, I personally get like, I have clairesentience is my strongest one, so I kind of have a knowing about it. But maybe you could talk about the other ones.
Yes, well, I don't have well, I've had a bit of all of them, but for me, yes, clairesentience. And I don't even get the names right. Is it? I'm not even sure whether it's clairempathy or where it's called clairkinesis or the feeling one.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, whatever that. So basically, without using the names because I can't remember them, there's seeing, hearing, feeling and sort of knowing. And it's clairvoyance is seeing, clairaudience is hearing, clairesentience, as you say, is knowing, and I can't remember what the feeling is.
I don't remember the other one.
Claire, because you talk about being kinesthetic. Cognizance. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
It might be cognizant. Anyway, so there's a feeling one as well. Yeah. So and people can get these intuitive hits in all those different ways. Yeah, it's great to cultivate those things.
Yeah, I found it very useful to try these different exercises. Like I went to this one meetup group, and you basically go around in a circle and you take turns reading a particular person, and you write down your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And then afterwards you read your thoughts to the person, and they say yes or no if that's something related to them or not. And I thought that was a really useful exercise. I mean, most people I could get about 70-80% correct on the hits.
Oh wow, that's very good.
Some people, like, they were very blocked, so I got like 0. But it's a very eye-opening experience to be able to see that. Are there any other like exercises that you do that you help?
I don't tend to do exercise. That's a great idea. I mean, I hadn't really thought about that. I tend to try and cultivate these things, in any way. So if I'm tuning into someone, I'll try and particularly push the visual side or the auditory side, which is the ones I'm not so strong on. And I do sometimes see things, and sometimes see things really clearly. But I like your idea, actually. I'll give that some thought. As I'm trying to think what other exercises there might be. Nothing obviously springs to mind, but I think that's great advice you've just given there for the listener is about, just try these things out. And I think in general, that, because one thing I was going to say is the big problem is that, consensus reality, as it were, is that you can't do any of this stuff. So most people don't even try. They do not have a go to see if they can read someone else, because they think it's impossible and it's all bullshit, But the thing is, you try, and everyone's got these gifts. I say sometimes they're hidden under the pile of all the shit we carry around with us. But, the truth is we've all got it in various different degrees,
Yeah, no, totally. I would be interested to find out what you think about, very successful people using things like energy healing and astrology and, all these types of supposedly woo-woo type of things. What have you experienced with that?
In general, I very much inhabit the world of what people call alternative stuff. On a daily basis, I'm working with people who are very intuitive, who can heal or, give me great insights and things, because as I said, spiritual journey is one of constant self-development to peel back the layers, and it gets to the point where you need to work with someone else because it gets quite hard to do it yourself.
You brought up knowing about the age that you had a trauma. Do you think it's important to know the background of the trauma, or is it?
Good question. Because the underlying precept of EFT and optimal EFT is that the fastest way to clear any block is to know, if you know what the actual underlying event was, what they call a specific event, to use a terminology, and you break it down into what you actually felt. So that time where that boy bullied me at school and I felt fear, for example, so that's as specific as you can get. So what you then do is work on the fear, and then say, okay, then that event might, as well as fear, there may be some sadness or some hurt, or so you break it down to each emotion and clear that. That is the most effective way of clearing something, is when you know all about it. Unfortunately, we don't always know what the underlying event is, so then we're left sort of stumbling around in the dark to a certain extent. Now, you don't have to know what the underlying event is always in order to clear it. A lot of the work I have done has been where I haven't fully known what it is, but I've known enough to be able to clear it. And some people I've worked with some amazing healers, and basically they just leave it so much up to the divine healing to do it, that you just let that do it, because it knows.
Yeah.
So you don't have to know. if you're, if you're working with the right person, you don't even have to know that. You can just let it happen. Having said that, traumas can have a nasty habit. If you don't clear every last bit, then some of it lingers, and very often it's the limiting beliefs that hang around. And a limiting belief will continue to, like, I've made up this example of the being bullied, right? So you may clear all the feelings associated with being bullied, but you may have at that time thought, I always get picked on, something like that. Just the thought, which is accompanied by really intense feelings at the time. And if you don't clear that thought, then there is a part of you, locked away at that age, which is continually saying, I always get picked on. I always get picked on. And you will generate that victim mentality throughout your entire life until you clear this, And so part of the process is about you looking at and trying to spot your limiting beliefs. This is what I'm very much doing with my training process. I'm always trying to spot, what do I believe about this? Do I believe that, I never get what I want, or I can't have, so one of the beliefs I had, for example, was it's okay to earn a certain amount of money, but not too much, so there's a ceiling to it. So, there's all that kind of stuff. And most people have that to some extent. But so, yeah, the answer is yes and no. So you can get a long way without knowing what it is. But I think the crucial bit is that if you can catch all the limiting beliefs. And this is something it's only comparatively recently I'm fully appreciating, that the power of the limiting beliefs. Fortunately, when I'm working as an energy healer, because I can sort of feel the energy fields in people and sort of see it or sense it, limiting beliefs appear differently to me. I can sense there's one because the shape of the energy field is different. And so that's quite useful for picking out when there's a limiting belief at stake. And then I can quite often hear them, or not always, unfortunately, but quite often if I listen in, I can sort of get a sense of what they're saying. So
okay, wow, that's amazing. And one last question: do you go to a therapist, or do you kind of work everything yourself?
I do a lot of it myself, but I have some fellow practitioners that I work with. We do swaps. Because some of it is too hard to do yourself. And I would also say big T trauma, anything, PTSD sort of level stuff, you should not do yourself, because there are, the bottom line is that stuff is so traumatic that when you go back to try and deal with it, you can very easily re-traumatize yourself again. So you have to be very, there's trauma training, which I've done, which, teaches you how to deal with these really extreme traumas, because so some stuff you should deal with a qualified therapist, and some stuff, especially once you've done a lot of work, then the stuff that's left is quite subtle, and you can't see it in yourself. It's much easier to see it in someone else, and we all know this, as we're all very good at judging other people, so look at picking out their faults, but we don't see the faults that we have ourselves. So I definitely work with other people, as with other therapists, on a sort of swap basis.
Okay, yeah, those are great points. And especially if you're just starting out with this stuff, I think you really have to go to somebody who knows how to do this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that if you're really keen on this journey, then I would say a great place to start would be EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, and the entire course is actually there for free on the Gary Craig's website, which is emofree.com. And if you go, but that's the optimal EFT site, but down in the bottom right hand corner is a link to the gold standard tapping EFT, and you can start there. The entire course is there, and it's everything you need to know. And if you sign up to these things, you can set up a group with other people, and you can swap and practice and things like that. So you can get quite a long way like that without having to go to a therapist necessarily. So it depends on what you're trying to clear and how severe it is.
Yeah. I've found EFT helpful in some cases, and I've also been using the Emotion Code by Bradley Nelson, and it's a similar concept. So
what was that again? The
Emotion Code.
The Emotion Code, right? I haven't come across that. I mean, there's no end to these things.
Yeah, there's so many out there, right? But
yeah.
they basically operate on the similar concept of
Mm.
going in there and figuring out what's blocking you. And
yeah.
So that's a great way to get started at home for sure.
And you find that works well for you?
Yeah, I had some really big releases. One of them, I was like on the ground for like half an hour because I released this thing that was so big that I just had this sense of relief, right? So yeah, so that stuff can help for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I appreciate your time, Adam. I don't want to keep you for too long, but where can people find you?
I can talk about the stuff for hours.
And if you want Adam to help you rip up your limiting beliefs, then check him out and see what he can do for you. All right, thanks, Adam.
Thank you very much, Hugh. It's been a pleasure.